Nerd Soul.
It is the best part of the episode, hands down. In fact, it ends at about halfway through the episode, and the episode can't even. Well, I guess if you're a big fan of the space whales, like it can attain that level of height again. But like for me personally, without having a lot of context into the space whales, the rest of the episode is somewhat boring comparative to what she's doing with Anakin during this like 10-minute segment, which is kind of just like brilliant. Like when I said there's 10 out of 10 moments, like these are the moments. They all occur in this sequence.
Yeah.
So the meat of the episode is all about this fact that she. So let's break this down. I'll tell you why I made the tweet. There was a lot of talk on Twitter today that was trying to suggest that this was actually Anakin showing up. That this was Anakin intentionally showing up, potentially as a Force ghost, to complete her training. That's not the way that I read it at all, and I don't even think that you can actually. I'm interested in arguments that could be made towards this, but I have a whole host of arguments that I would make against it. And let's just start with if you go through the dialogue of the conversation that they're having. Ahsoka says to him after they begin fighting, right? Let's talk about why they begin fighting. The question is whether or not Ahsoka will continue to fight for her life and to live, right? Mm-hmm. The metaphor or the analogy that's being used here is that she has been quote unquote killed by Baylan Skoll, and now the question is, will she fight to regain consciousness in the real world and continue her adventures, or will she just succumb to, look, the world is a complex place. I don't even know my way around it anymore. I've become very stoic. I don't even know, we've seen her being so stoic that it's almost a question of like, does she really care, or is she just going through the motions? And to me, this was kind of the analogy of saying like, are you going to care, and are you going to show up and keep living, or would you rather just go and be one with the Force now? And that's the basic premise of her being in this, what I would call a Force vision. Mm-hmm. Now, the next question is, okay, well, what does she have to learn in order for her to make it through this vision and live, as opposed to deciding that she's not going to continue? And that's where you have to say, okay, is this actually Anakin showing up, or is this her trying to understand better someone who she had immense admiration for, that went on to turn to the dark side, and then how do you deal with that? And so to me, it's kind of revealed early on, because he says to her, we're going to do this training exercise, and then he cuts the bridge that they're on. They fall down. She becomes young Ahsoka, and one of the first things is she says to him like, we're in the Clone Wars, and he's like, yeah, of course we're in the Clone Wars. I can't remember the exact dialogue. I put it in a tweet.
He said this is one of our first missions.
Yeah, this is one of our first missions. And then she said, why are we here? And he basically goes like, I don't know. This is your deal, right? So if it's Anakin, this is not very directed training by him. He's letting her experience whatever moments that she needs to experience to get through the part of the character journey that she needs to cross. So that to me would indicate that this is Ahsoka's vision, and Ahsoka is dealing with her understanding of who Anakin was, who he became, and then how he ended, right? Which she didn't get to see. And then if you keep going through this, that makes a lot more sense to me as it relates to her character journey and as it relates to Anakin's character journey. Because on the one side, if Anakin is still training her at this point, it removes some of her agency. It removes some of her. It honestly feels a little awkward, because now it feels like she needs to hear from her former master, who happens to have made a lot of wrong choices, none of which he brings up, by the way, in this episode. In fact, if it's Anakin, he switches back and forth between being good Anakin and bad Anakin for no reason. It's almost more like she's having trouble seeing him as good Anakin. She keeps seeing him as Vader flash in, because she's trying to deal with that. But if it's him, why would he flash there? Like, why make that part of your training? So to me, a lot of those things under scrutiny don't hold up as well. And the reason I bring it up too is because some very influential Star Wars fandom prequel era people who have been gatekeepers in the fandom are the ones that are like advocating for this. And I'm like, this feels like another theory that you're advocating for so that you can continue to be a gatekeeper, but like a wider understanding of the Star Wars. Because if it really is Anakin, then why would he, after going through all that he's gone through, traumatizing Ahsoka, why would he come back and traumatize her more? That doesn't seem like someone who turned to the light side's kind of move, right? To come back and do that. So there's a lot of reasons why I just don't feel like now Bryant, Dylan, and I. Bryant's from Fanbase Press. You and he have been on shows with me before. Great commentator. Like he was like, oh, I have to think about that. And he was thinking like, well, maybe it is part of Anakin's essence that does show up. And I'm not arguing against that per se. I'm arguing against it being like, this is Anakin going through the final processes of Ahsoka's training. It's like, that doesn't seem like what this is at all. This seems very much like when Luke, like in my tweet, Luke goes to Dagobah. He goes into the cave, even though Yoda's like, who knows what you're going to see in there. Good luck, bud. He goes into the cave. He fights Vader. What does he do with Vader? He destroys Vader. He cuts Vader's head off. What happens? The helmet melts away and it is Luke's face. What is that saying to Luke? It's saying to Luke, you will become me if you become the person who is filled with hate and filled with rage and feels like he needs to destroy Darth Vader. Like, you will become Darth Vader. And this is Ahsoka's time to say, do I become Anakin? Do I become Vader? Or do I become something different entirely? And if you notice, she makes the similar choice that Luke makes, is that she throws her lightsaber away when faced with Vader and says, I'm not doing this, man. Like, I'm not going down this road. And that's what brings her back to appreciating life and appreciating what she can bring to the world. So to me, to say that this is Anakin coming back and training her is actually to do a disservice to Ahsoka, where this is actually her wrestling through this issue as opposed to him guiding her through this issue, right? That's just my personal take.